Chip Kelly's offense is poised for a bounce back with all that's coming back as long as they...
You are Locked On UCLA, your daily podcast on the UCLA Bruins. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to this edition of the Locked On UCLA podcast. I'm your host, Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer. Thanks for making this show your first listen, first watch each and every day. It's free wherever you get your podcast. And, hey, as you're watching on YouTube, thanks for making this first watch. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel makes every moment more. Right now, new customers get 115 bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet, win or lose. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Where we get started for today's episode, some surprising returners coming back for Chip Kelly's offense, even ones we thought were long gone. Another returner who I thought was already banked to be returning, but he had to confirm, since we're in the day and age where not only do you have to post you're committed or recommitted or decommitted or committing for the third or fifth time and then decommitting after the coach leaves and then getting a bigger NIL deal to decommit after committing, after transferring, after committing, you've got to prove that you're still interested in the university that you've attended to for the previous season. So if you're still with me after all that, UCLA is lucky to have the return of J.Michael Sturdivant. I wasn't under the impression that he was going to leave, but he did announce, one, he's not going to the NFL draft. He has proven he's not going to try and go anywhere else for school. We'll see if something crazy happens, but UCLA's best receiving prospect is returning for Ethan Garbers, who is large in part slated to be the 2024 starter. And then the guy who's also returning, decommitting from UConn, withdrawing his name for the transfer portal, Keegan Jones, of all guys, right? Thought he was long gone going to Jim Mora. No, he's coming back. So he gives UCLA a versatile option, lots of weapons. You bring in Rico Flores Jr., you keep the running back room stocked with the insertion of the new incoming freshman Cam Jones, and then all of a sudden you bring back TJ Harden, who looks to be the lead feature back. This is a UCLA offense with Chip Kelly that should look more like the Chip Kelly offense that we're used to. I'm not going to say of old because Oregon was flat out unstoppable, but Chip Kelly has had some good offensive teams. Last year just wasn't one of them. What's funny, though, is even in 2023, a terrible Chip Kelly offense, yes, who did they play? San Diego State. Who'd they play? NC Central. Well, all these things you can point to for defense and who they face. Still, UCLA was in the top 32 in the country in total offense. But amongst those top 32, UCLA had the least amount of success scoring offensive touchdowns. They only had 45, which is still a decent amount, not the worst. There could be far worse offensive metrics for a team that averaged 427 yards, nearly 6 yards per play. But as we could tell, the offense would always shoot themselves in the foot, whether it was a mistimed, ill-timed turnover, usually leading to another team's score, or the inability to protect whoever was playing quarterback long enough. So UCLA's offense is going to be back and playing at a higher Chip Kelly-like level. I expect it to be much better next year, and that should be, I think, the driving force for this team. If not, it'll be a long year. It'll be a long year if this team does not succeed offensively. They need the offensive line play to be good. And we already saw Spencer Holsteg withdraw his name for the transfer portal. So in a day and age where it's so strange to see guys stick around, and even if they put their name in the portal, I was thinking, hey, you got guys in the portal. It's unlikely they're going to come back. Holsteg came back. Keegan Jones came back. And now you've got the majority of your starting offensive line coming back. Maybe a mixture of a transfer, mixture of incoming freshmen, guys stepping up who were buried in the depth chart last year. Some continuity in the offensive line can help to push forward a pass-blocking unit that just did not have it. If they can protect Garbers a little bit, keep him upright, keep him healthy, then we're not asking Garbers to be a Heisman Trophy finalist candidate. That's not what he needs to be to drive this force. All you got to be is what we saw in the bowl game. Just get it out to J.Michael Sturdivant. Find Kyle Ford. Find Logan Loya. Find these receivers on the outside. I wonder what Rico Flores is going to look like in a UCLA uniform, the transfer from Notre Dame. Then you've got the speedster dynamic that needs to be used a lot more in Keegan Jones. TJ Harden's already proved that he can do damage. Keep him healthy. I would love to see the impact the freshman Jones is going to have. And then you give Keegan more touches alongside the St. John Bosco incoming running back, the freshman Cam Jones. And then all of a sudden, you could have a dynamic running back room, receivers. You've got the tight ends with Monteval. You've got some talent, even with Carson Ryan leaving, even with Carson Steele, ironically, you got Jones in the backfield. You've got Carson's leaving. You've got a lot of talent. If they could just keep the likes of Ethan Garbers upright, the numbers were clear. When Garbers started and played a complete game, the Bruins didn't lose. In large part, had a different spark. For some reason, it was just the veteran presence in that locker room, the understanding of the Chip Kelly offense, when to make the right read. Not that he didn't make a bad play or two, certainly looked a little shaky in the Coastal Carolina game, but as the year went on, after losing the job, this is a team that can go out and in a Big Ten conference that's defined largely by the defense, right? The Iowas who UCLA is going to have to face. If the Bruins can put up points, they can probably be more competitive in these games than we might give them credit for. Now, it's not going to come alongside what I believe to be a historic defense, which is funny considering you had USC hiring away Danton Lynn to now become what I read, if it's not mistaken, a co-defensive coordinator. It's something wonky. It's all goofy. What's going on over? I don't know what's going on over there. Yet, here we are, UCLA with Akaika Malloy. If they can get some talent developed through the portal that they're using heavily to replace the secondary, the offense will be the driving force, and this team can maybe surprise some folks. Are they going to come out and be a 10-win team? I can't say that right now. The roster's not solidified. Got to see the health going into the season. Would love to see some improvement pass blocking in the O-line because the Bruins could run the ball, maybe not as dominantly as they needed to be on a 4th and short, a 3rd and short when they couldn't do things against Cal or against Arizona State. But large in part, the rushing numbers were there for chunk yardage in big games, whether it was Steele earlier, Harden, or even Colin Schlee, who will have an impact next year, barring anything changing. I would love to see the dual QB system return in a hybrid form, with Schlee coming in to be the bounce back and change of pace option, with Garbers sitting there as the regular steady QB option in that room. I believe UCLA should be closer to the top 20, top 15, cracking the top 10 offensively with what they've got returning. As long as they can shore up the offensive line, make it a bit more consistent, I think Chip Kelly had that down year offensively, and the offense can really get going. Is it going to be the best offense he's ever had? No. They don't need to be unless they're trying to go compete for a truly special season. But I do think the offense will be much, much, much improved. And to be quite honest, you look at the stats, maybe it might not be that different, but it comes down to the offensive line play because the skill positions are there. The QB, the running back room, the receivers, the tight ends, as long as you get those guys up front, blocking for Garbers and even for Schlee or whoever's going to be taking snaps if something crazy happens next year, like it was rotating in a revolving door this year for one reason or another, injury or not, this team should have a somewhat steady offensive mindset. Hey, go out, go score your 30, and if the defense can hold them a little bit under, the Bruins can eke out some wins and have a very surprising season their first year in the Big Ten. What's their win-loss total, their over-under? We got all offseason to talk about that. But I do think this team is prepared with Keegan Jones returning. Yes, he withdrew, decommitted from UConn, and is coming back to UCLA. And then you already had Holsteg withdraw from the portal. J.Michael Sturdivant announced he's returning. All sorts of goofy nonsense to say, wait a minute, that's a unique UCLA offense. Don't be surprised if they go put up numbers in 2024. All right? Meanwhile, it's certainly not surprising that Chip Kelly's hitting the portal. Desperately, this UCLA football team needs anybody. Hey, is there a free safety? Is there a strong safety? Are you a corner? Do you play nickelback? What are you playing in the secondary? UCLA is taking flyers, might have tryouts. Who knows? They need depth in the defense, especially in the secondary, which is why their latest along the full string of transfers is important. We'll talk about that next for Locked On UC. I know we come here to talk and escape by talking sports, to escape the crazy realities of real life, right? Well, let's talk about preparing for real life for a moment. We're in the middle of a big flu season. It's winter time, and that can mean very scary things, and maybe you're feeling helpless. But we'll be okay because of Jace Medical. The Jace case offered by Jace Medical has a pack of 5 different antibiotics that treats a long list of bacterial infections, including UTIs, respiratory infections, skin infections, among others. That can happen to any of us. All you got to do is visit jacemedical.com, complete your physician encounter. It'll be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important than to be prepared for today, right here, right now. Go to jacemedical.com, that's Jase medical.com, and use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your order. All right, cruising on in the second segment for Locked On UCLA, and whenever we talk more recruiting for UCLA, we always got to shout out LinkedIn, our recruiting sponsor here on the network. UCLA football, man, oh man. It's never an easy time to talk about recruiting with this team because you just never know, right? You try to think you know, and then you've got to commit from the portal who decommits. You've got a guy in the portal who commits, then decommits to come back, guy who's going to leave, then leaves the portal. It's a whirlwind to understand what's going on. And now you can maybe 2-time transfer. Oh, my goodness. Oh, and the NFL draft is here. What's going on? What is going on? Is this losing your mind? Yes. But that's what I'm here to try and dissect it a little bit for you guys and understand who's coming, who's going, and who's the latest in the building for UCLA. The latest in the building, committing-wise, bear with me. Who knows if they changed their mind, like Marcus Ratcliffe, who probably got a hefty NIL deal over with Texas A&M to go change his mind, the former Aztec committed Bruin, now heading to Texas A&M. The current UCLA DB commit is KJ Wallace, who tweeted out a little over the weekend is that he's going to be a Bruin. He is a grad transfer, started at Notre Dame, so maybe he can connect with Rico Flores, although their times did not intersect. And then he played at Georgia Tech, started the last couple of years, had 88 tackles, a couple of interceptions, and 8 passes defended, right? This is a team that's going under a new regime of sorts in the defensive coordinator with Akaika Malloy, who has the reputation of being a good recruiter. He brought in Leatu Latu, was the D-line coach for a unit that was so dominant with the Murphy twins, with Latu. You're trying to generate a defense which hopefully can keep some philosophies and continuity from the Danton Lynn idea for defense. Bring it in. It helps that you have NFL talent, the best arguable D-lineman, one of the top 2 in the country in this upcoming NFL draft, on your roster, dominating, because the Bruins are blessed to have Latu these last couple of seasons, one of the most dominant UCLA players you will see. But how do you replace that? Well, it starts with the secondary, because as much as UCLA once in a blue moon would get beat deep, they were still pretty solid last year. And with all that's leaving, right, with the Trojans stealing Kamari Ramsey and John Humphrey, 2 key starters, which could have been helped by getting all these transferred. Now UCLA is just trying to replenish what is coming in. For KJ Wallace, he is now the 8th player coming to UCLA via the portal. That does not include Marcus Ratcliffe, who is a one-time commit. This is a guy who's coming in and looking to fill a role only for a season, which then you wonder how much can UCLA keep playing this game. And then you go look at different players who are now going to have to reopen their commitment, reopen their recruiting, because Jedd Fisch jumps to Washington. DeBoer jumps to Alabama. Arizona about to hire the San Jose State coach. Those are 3 separate universities going crazy and a lot of good players that could reopen their commitment. You've got Alabama's best receiver flipping to Texas. That's just this day and age of college football where it's not staying for 3 to 4 years, earning your time maybe with a red shirt, taking advantage of that. It's, can I go make as much money, get as much playing time right here, right now, and get the job done? Wallace, I hope, can help bring some stability to the defense that is going to face a lot of holes. And I wonder how much the youth will play a role in this. So first, who's leaving for UCLA? You've got William Nimmo Jr., a senior who's a grad transfer. UCLA was going to struggle when they lost Kenny Churchwell and Jordan Anderson. Nimmo was a key loss in the portal. Already talked Humphrey, who's got an extra year left. You've got the likes of their long snapper, Bo Gardner, RJ Lopez, a kicker. Dante Moore, well already chronicled. He's at Oregon. Jeremiah McClure at the receiver, didn't really see much PT and decided to go elsewhere, I believe to San Diego State. Jake Wiley, you wish UCLA could have gotten more stability in the O-line. Wiley's gone. Moore's gone. Cam Brown's gone. Carson Ryan already committed to Utah. Kamari Ramsey. Those are the guys leaving. Now, who's coming in for UCLA? You've got, not in any specific order, Ryan Wilkins, the long snapper, which obviously replaces a long snapper who went to Georgia. So even in the long snapping game, it's a struggle to play for who's coming and staying for your university, right? That is what it's coming down to. All the way down to the long snappers. Do you have to go to the portal to find somebody who is decent? You've got Joseph Vaughn, a grad transfer where it's books and ball for the Chip Kelly philosophy. Well, because Stanford doesn't really take transfers, even though they've taken maybe 2 in the last couple of years for men's basketball. I know that's not football, but it's struggling to get in there. UCLA goes and plucks an Ivy Leaguer and Joseph Vaughn. He can help, hopefully, when it comes to making some big plays. 88 tackles and 13 for loss, 3 forced fumbles, 3 interceptions. That's Joseph Vaughn coming over and hopefully playing a very pivotal role from Yale into the UCLA side of things in 24. Brian Anderson, he's been around from so many crazy years. Initially UCLA signing, then to Oregon, now back 7 years. This will be a first-day starter. So you're bringing Addison. Hopefully Vaughn can be a day one help. And then you bring in KJ Wallace, who should probably be starting after being a 2-year starter as a Yellow Jacket. That is already 2 to 3 guys who are going to be playing an impactful role defensively just because there's not a lot of numbers. Rico Flores, Mateen Bagani, who is going to be the starting kicker for UCLA, ripping him from Cal. Collins Achimpong, who is somebody that can develop. I don't know how much of the 6'8", 6'7", 270-pound D lineman will affect UCLA's defense in year 1 with him recovering from injury. We'll find out how that goes. And then Jason Busick, who comes over from Navy. You can see the connection with Ken Niumatalolo there when he was the coach, brought Busick over there. He's got a couple of years. Those are guys, 3 to 4 UCLA's already gotten to make impacts defensively. UCLA, think about this. On the offensive side, UCLA has maybe 1 guy in the portal coming, which means I think the offensive side of the football can be a more cohesive side, bringing this back from segment 1 into segment 2. Defensively, the Bruins have 8 guys, or in the portal, 8 guys, about 3 to 4 starting. You're bringing a kicker, you're bringing a long snapper, hopefully more consistency from the kicking game. You can get more points offensively. Chip Kelly doesn't have to be more of a riverboat gambler because he can't trust his kicker. And then a long snapper, not that was really a problem last year. You bring in some defense. That's what UCLA is getting in the portal. But now here, let's kind of shift things for a second. Can UCLA go get some of the former Servite guys at Arizona, Titarola McMillan and Noah Fafita? They're probably going to go follow Jedd Fisch. That's just how college football works. QB follows coach who goes to new university and sets new standards. How did Kalen DeBoer get Michael Penix to Washington? Their Indiana connection back in his offensive coordinator days. And that's just how it goes. But maybe UCLA, this is just a thought. Nobody specifically I'm thinking off the top of my mind at the moment. Can UCLA go get some Arizona players? Because Arizona was good last year, right? The more and more you looked, it was like, wow, Arizona was good. UCLA, how are they even favored to win that game in Tucson? I picked them to lose, and they did not win. That was the only game UCLA lost that Garbers started. Even though Garbers got banged up, they probably don't win. Even though he left injured, that was the one game UCLA was not going to win. And they still did dumb things with their defense making a play down to the 1-yard line, right? That's another rant. Can they go get current Arizona players, dejected and frustrated, bring them over? Hopefully they got, the academic standards coming over from Tucson to UCLA to make that happen. Or do you go after guys who are committed to Washington? Hey, well, I see you're going to Seattle. Come over here, right? I was already looking at Bro Report. Maybe there's a D lineman or two or different commits that are reopening their commitments, reopening the recruiting for the later signing day. They can say, hey, I want you to come in our locker room and all of a sudden boost up the recruiting rankings. UCLA is currently at the bottom of the Big Ten with their recruiting class for this year, and the only team below them is a team that's trending upward with the new head coach in Northwestern, right? Those are the only teams hovering below UCLA, or the only team, and they still are going in the right direction because of their extreme high academic standards, and they performed in the Big Ten. So something to look forward to is, will Chip Kelly, Ikaika Malloy, go chase these guys? And think about Malloy. He knows how to recruit that Seattle area, how to steal a guy from Washington and bring him to UCLA and make him into a stud, or has a clear eye for talent. Can UCLA go steal these guys, whether it's via the portal through Arizona or maybe an Arizona commit? You go look at guys, maybe looking at Oregon State as they're currently in this weird state of in-between power conference to not, with the Oregon State, Washington State sort of things. And then what about all these guys that just committed to Kalen DeBoer that are no longer interested? Even though Jedd Fisch, I think, will do a fine job in Seattle, more resources, more money, bigger building, I think he'll have a lot more of a fun time in Washington than he did rebuilding the Arizona Wildcats football program. So can UCLA go steal some recruits in the coaching frenzy that we've seen from college football all the way up to the NFL, with coaches leaving, retiring, basically getting fired, all mixing and changing the landscape in the middle of January after the national championship game? And we're still this late in the recruiting cycle. The Bruins can make a big impact with one or two more guys, because they certainly have spots. Hey, you want to play in the secondary? Hey, if you're a D lineman, shed some pounds, come play DB. I don't know. Obviously, that's a stupid thing to say. Still, UCLA, they need more guys. They need more talent defensively. Maybe they could steal an offensive prospect and develop him over the year, and he can get starting time in year 2. Or does UCLA just have to go steal all these guys from the portal after the entire offense leaves this next year via the NFL, out of eligibility, or anything in between? 8 guys in, maybe more, maybe a flip commitment left for UCLA, right? They've already flipped Jameer Benjamin, who had to change his commitment 2 or 3 times. Can the Bruins be persuasive enough? Is there enough in that NIL collective going for them compared to other schools that can convince everybody to come to UCLA, that can be a game changer in year 1 in the Big Ten? That is what's going on for UCLA. What can be a game changer for Mick Cronin? Well, hey, I was reading an article, I believe by Ben Bolch, talking about his current and only commit in the 24 class in Eric Freeny, who's a rising star and could easily be one of the better recruits Cronin steals. And then they threw out an offer last week to a class of 25. What's the recruiting looking like for Mick Cronin and company in the next year or two? Because this year is either going to be a great success or a great flop, and we won't know until a couple of years from now whether this class of 23 lives up to the hype or it does not. Next on Locked On UCLA. The NFL's regular season wrapped up. First round of the playoffs already come and gone with their wild card playoff round, right, in the NFL. But there's still time to get in the action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. New customers can get up to $150 in bonus bets, $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. That's $150 in bonus bucks in bonus bets too. Win or lose. The app's super easy to use. You can use the live same game parlay. Hey, maybe you're feeling a little gutsy. You want to check into that UCLA Arizona State action, right? You're feeling confident after the Bruins got that dub against Washington. Either expecting a letdown or you're expecting a supreme surprise road victory. Now's the time. Go check in on it. Or if you like the NFL playoffs, obviously, get in with FanDuel. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to make your first bet a layup. Again, that's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, an official partner of the NFL. Cruising on, last segment with Locked On UCLA. Zach with you guys. And again, hey, recruiting, we use it, we talk it with LinkedIn. This time, we're flipping to the hardwood, because what does UCLA need to do to grow this program with Mick Cronin? He already talked about earlier, a few weeks ago, in talking with the media, The NIL's not there to go get those big name transfers, and you wonder, hey, who is those free agents the Cincinnati Reds went after that the Dodgers got that Mick Cronin, his quote, he is referring to, right? Who are those older players Mick Cronin could have gotten? I am not quite sure who the Bruins were on or just made a phone call on or made inquiries on. At this moment, there's no real idea. But the big thing is for right now, UCLA has one current commit in Eric Freeny for the 24 class. He is somebody who as Ben Bolch wrote, or excuse me, Eric Sondheimer. I said Ben Bolch, but Eric Sondheimer wrote, the legendary Sondy, my apologies. Ben Bolch, the great UCLA beat writer, but Sondheimer wrote about UCLA getting a perfect fit. I already talked about there being a perfect fit this year, or most recent part of the season. Jaime Jaquez Jr. being a perfect fit with the Miami Heat after the NBA draft could not have been more spot on because that was very easy to see. If he stuck with the Miami Heat, that was going to be a perfect piece. Now he's on the short list for making NBA Rookie of the Year honors. Meanwhile, it's Eric Freeny, who Sondheimer talks about, 6'4" current senior guard, 3 Southern Section championships, I believe all in the Open Division with Corona Centennial, and he has been growing. And one of the quips in the LA Times article I'm reading about Eric Sondheimer, if you want a player who does everything, the 6'4" senior guard at Corona Centennial is that man. Add to the fact that he doesn't mind a coach telling him if he's doing something wrong in a loud voice, and you begin to understand how he's the perfect player to join UCLA. I see the comments. You see people talking about Mick Cronin berates his players. He's loud. He's obnoxious. It's his on-court antics during games are disrespectful and yalla. You're right. Okay, get over it. But what's funny is this is what Freeny was quoted as saying in the article. When a coach is yelling at you, I've learned to put it aside, says Eric Freeny, the current 2024 recruit. Coach Giles, his current high school coach, and Coach Cronin are kind of the same person. I know not to take it personally. Does that not get you excited? He's currently averaging about 20.7 rebounds. That's someone who could come in and make an impact right away. Is it going to be a 15-point per game scorer? Is he going to need to do everything? Is he just somebody who plays a good role and just makes a big difference for a current UCLA team that needs to get more rebounds, be tougher defensively, even though they're good with some numbers defensively, and much, much, much better offensively than just one outburst against a Washington team where they scored 73 points for a key win at home, their first home Pac-12 win of the conference season, snapping a 4-game skid. So you bring in Eric Freeny, who's the only recruit, which makes you wonder, what is Mick Cronin banking on for this next year? There's nobody. You look at prospects, you look at different guys. There's nobody on the radar for his recruiting cycle. He had to spend it all in the 23 class, whether it was all the way down to Bedeke, the last recruit. You go to Devin Williams and everybody, and Devin Williams hasn't even played. He was a one-time teammate of Eric Freeny at Corona Centennial. You've got Brandon Williams from New York. You've got all the international kids mixed in with Sebastian Mack. Where is this team going to be next year? Are we expecting a Dembona to come back one more year? I doubt it. Is there a world where Bedeke doesn't test the waters? He'll be an older 20-year-old sophomore. Does he do enough in the next month and a half to get enough bite of the apple to go jump and take a look at the NBA draft? Does Adai Mara get teased enough with his 7'3" frame to get looked at? Probably comes back. Then you've got a big 7'3" center to mix in if he can develop over the next year. Because this is a class that is specifically going to be ranked based on its development and growth from year to year. Because right now, this 23-24 season is not defining this year, right? In a day and age in college basketball where we flipped from the fab freshman era to now the older COVID era, COVID season college basketball years, right? Where we've got 22, 23, 24-year-olds, maybe even a 25-year-old on a roster here and there at the D1 level with a 6th, 7th, 28 billionth year senior. Cronin doesn't have much next year. Well, I do think Freeny, who's been raised from a 3-star to a 4-star, a rising guy in stock value for UCLA recruiting, it's going to come down to how much does this current roster not only develop from now until March, from now until the Pac-12 tournament, all with the 7 freshmen they brought in, and the transfer Stefanovic, who is that 8th incomer, that 8th newcomer and incoming player, who has another year of eligibility, how all those guys gel in addition to Dylan Andrews and Will McClendon for the next year. The Bruins don't currently, in my eyes, have a big post player. Bona is probably going to go. Mara's development is important if he even stays with UCLA. I really don't know where Bedeke's head is at. One wonders about the development and usage rate of Devin Williams. We're probably not going to see a lot of guys coming into this next cycle. There's only a signing. But there was an offer handed out by Cronin, apparently, according to Bruin Report Online, and even Mazi Mosley himself tweeting it out, that he was offered by Mick Cronin, a slow-growing guy when it comes to offers coming in. 4-star, the class of 25 is where these coaches' minds are at. Remember, last year at this time, UCLA had a bit more commits, even though it was small and all the drama and all the fun was coming after the season. They had 3 commits versus just the 1 they have currently. So I don't expect, barring massive turnover from next year, which could very well happen, there probably isn't going to be a lot. But the Bruins do throw out a little bite, throw out some bait to a 25 kid from La Cañada, Mazi Mosley. Hey, wonder if that sounds familiar. From St. Francis, he's a 4-star guy, only rising even more in value and potential growth. A high school junior, where he apparently Mick Cronin sent out an offer in front of his team. You wonder how often that happens, but UCLA is going after him in an intense fashion. A guy who, just reading about him, it talks about his ability, who he's unofficially come to campus, attended the UCLA win, which is huge, got offers from Arizona State, Cal, Oklahoma, Washington, Xavier. That's what Mick Cronin is going against. The connection, though, is where he plays AAU ball locally with some of Cronin's connections, I believe, and so far averaging close to 26 points, about 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 6'4", product, 6'5", depending on how much he grows. This is a guy who, in a couple of years, keep looking over the next year, someone who Mick Cronin threw out that offer to that hopefully can help the UCLA side in a couple of years' time when all these freshmen have either moved on, transferred, or developed into a key role. Because in 2 years, after 2 years for this class, I think at max UCLA has maybe 3 of those guys. Maybe 3 or 4 if we're lucky. 3 guys after 2 years. Mosley, first guy getting some real run, I think, from Cronin. Now, obviously, there's been offers and everything being looked at, but hey, that's interesting. A 4-star guy in the locker room after a UCLA win. Hey, that's got to be someone who truly impresses Cronin, who's got to keep his hands in everything, right? This year's team, how do I improve them for next year? And then in 2 years' time, throw out a little bite of the apple for Mazi Mosley right there, who can be a 4-star guard product. Maybe in that time develops into a 5-star. The Bruins snap him up real quick, and maybe the NIL will be there so he doesn't even change his mind if he eventually decides to sign with UCLA, where there is no crystal ball at this time. None. The only crystal ball I have is UCLA currently has a lot of work to do. And they got a lot of good vibes after that win against Washington, which is why next episode we'll talk more about the upcoming week for UCLA basketball against Arizona State and Arizona, their last trip to the desert schools before they split and go their separate ways into 2 new conferences. We'll eventually talk about the highlights of the rivalry in the McHale Center. And, hey, UCLA women, they've got a tough battle this week, starting with Colorado, who's a number 3 team in the country. All that and more football content on Locked On UCLA. Comment, subscribe, review. Tell me your thoughts. Do you agree that the offense is going to be good? Do you not? Do you think UCLA needs to be more involved in recruiting football or basketball? Obviously, but tell me your thoughts in the comment section below or tweet at us. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Locked On UCLA. Zach Anderson-Yoxsimer signing off. Hands up, Bruins fans. 8 clap time, baby. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. UCLA. UCLA. Fight, fight, fight. This has been Locked On UCLA. Go Bruins.